right, but while we are waiting for a couple extra people to join, if you would, it would be helpful for everyone here as well as myself. Feel free to put in the chat what aspects of either meal prep or tracking you either struggle with or you have found success with in the past. Or something that's your kind of your main takeaway you're willing to learn today. For those who did provide questions for me in the main sign up, I did take track of those, and I have those off the side. So at the end, I'm going to be going through kind of my take or the thoughts behind some of those questions that you asked separately. Meal prep for the week on Sundays. That is an excellent option. Yep, that'll be something I'll be talking about in some of the tips for meal prep, but that is certainly a wonderful option and a great way to kind of end or start your week. Meal planning, you do a bit of it and then fall off. Excellent. Well, you're in the right place if you've tried meal planning before and have a hard time doing that consistently, because I'll be talking about those things today.
Hi. Got it all filled out?
Can you check it for me?
Yes.
Tracking macros, so you don't need, so you're looking for ideas for high protein meals. Excellent. That is something we can talk about too. All right, I will be jumping in, but for those of you who are joining late, feel free to put either any questions you come up with in the chat. For those of you who had previously signed up and gave me questions, I'll be covering those at the end, so feel free to stick around or review the video later. And the question I'm having people put in the chat right now is either what have you found success with, or an aspect that you're looking to improve upon or struggle with around kind of meal prep and or food tracking. All right, but we'll jump in. So thank you all for joining me. My name is Colin Meidel. I manage the LOL Fitness Center here, and today we're going to be talking about a webinar going over not as much your goals, but how we can fuel our goals through meal prep and food tracking. So jumping right in, typically when I speak with people, whether it's in personal training, wellness coaching, or a nutrition capacity, these are kind of the areas of either the biggest challenge when it comes to healthy eating. Time, our cost, energy, lack of ideas, lack of consistency. So I'm sure some of you have experienced one or two or all of these in terms of your health and wellness when it comes to healthy eating or other aspects of your wellness routine. So we're going to be talking about kind of breaking those down, or kind of the benefits and tips for how you can kind of dive into the meal prep, as well as some tracking if it does pertain to your health and wellness goals. And when you're kind of able to implement the tips, that's when you actually can find the most benefit to saving time, to saving money, saving your own energy, your own fuel. So we'll kind of help come up with a list of ideas, and all in all, hopefully that'll help with some of the consistency for tackling any of the goals that you're currently working on. All right, so why should we simplify nutrition? In our lives, our work-life balance. I know that gets thrown around a whole lot, and I'm not as much a believer of the work-life balance, but more I work and my life, and I want them to be in one. So it's not balancing both, but it's finding a way for them to structure it together, because it is just my life, and there's really no separation of that. So busy lives usually means we have less time for our health. Typically, not always, but people, we prioritize the main needs, and sometimes one of those needs, which, that's kind of my part here in the Lion Lakes Fitness Center, is being able to spread the awareness around the benefit for our health. But typically with busy lives, it means we have less time we can devote towards our physical health, our mental health. So being able to hop on these webinars is a big benefit for me, and then I hope you find a benefit from them as well. But that's a big reason why we want to simplify our nutrition, so that we can spend more time on what really matters, but also aiding our health as well. Decision fatigue, that's a big one. Sometimes that can lead to poor choices. Now, it's less of poor choices, but more choices that are easiest to make. So if we're running late for work, and we need to be grabbing fast food, but decision fatigue is truthfully real, and it happens to me all the time. So I want to try to simplify things for you to remove some daily stress behind the necessary choices of sustenance. And one thing I really want to stress is that you really don't need to be perfect, just consistent. Consistency is going to be better than perfection in the long run. So if there's one, well, there'll be a few takeaways which I want you to take away from this, but that's going to be one of the main ones is be flexible, and work to be consistent. Even if it is, there's some aspects that might need improvement over time. Everyone needs to improve something over time. So ultimately, how can we be consistent? Because that will be better than perfection, and that will slowly lead us towards our overall health and wellness goals and success. All right. So in talking about the challenges with healthy eating, the benefits are going to be exact same. It's going to save us time, save us money. It's going to reduce our stress, boost our energy, boost our focus. It's going to help kind of connect the benefits to all of our overall wellness goals, our energy, our focus. We're not going to spend too much time on nutrition guidelines or recommendations. I've done that webinar a couple months ago, and that is up on the Land Lakes Fitness Center LOFit YouTube page. So if you have any questions there, I'd be, of course, happy to answer them, but that is something I've already covered. So more so the benefits of specifically meal prep and food tracking. But it's going to save time. So we hopefully will bypass the question of what's for dinner moments, or kind of, waiting, sitting around, looking at your family and like, I don't know, I thought you might figure it out. It can help save our money. So prepping is going to help cut down grocery and eating out costs. And it's going to help ultimately build a health benefit to make better choices over time, to help boost our mood, boost our energy, our productivity, and reduce our stress. So jumping into meal prep made simple. It is not an all or nothing. Like I mentioned, I want one of my biggest takeaways to be consistency over perfection. We don't have to completely refab our entire life, or we don't have to completely overview or overhaul our entire eating routine. That's my take on nutrition coaching as well. If you do work with me one-on-one, or in these settings here, it's not realistic to expect yourself to have a complete 180 change. Of course, you might see a 180 change over time of doing one step at a time, but all or nothing is not realistic. It's not sustainable. And so we need to start small. Meal prep, it does sound very intimidating, but it's really about taking small steps. And we don't have to prep all 21 meals at once. We're going to build this up over time. You're going to build out your meals over time, so you don't have to think about, okay, I'm prepping one night. Maybe it might be a Sunday, but you don't need to prep, 7 days of breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, snacks included. That's too overwhelming. I don't even do that. That is way too challenging. So you have to modify for where you're at and then slowly add on over time. Okay, so on the next couple slides where I'll really dive into, and I kind of have things listed out. That's the style I wanted to go through for this webinar. But some tools and shortcuts, which I want to emphasize first, is grocery list templates are really helpful. So I'll jump into, and I'm getting ahead of myself for the next slide for planning and preparation for our meals. But the mindset before we go into nutrition or how we eat is very important. And that's something that I want everyone to kind of ask themselves that question is what do I eat? How do I eat? And kind of just this so simple too. And or even when do we eat are some big ones as well. But principally going into shopping with some sort of list is going to be very helpful versus just kind of going like, okay, I'm at the grocery store. Now what? Now what do I grab? Now I have to think of my recipe on the fly. And that's kind of where it takes more time. It takes more energy, and we want to avoid those. Some other preparation items, which can be helpful, is having access to containers and portion tools. So whether they're, glass containers, plastic containers, there are, pros and cons, which I'm not going to really dive into today, but having containers we can set aside for those meals. Having, again, kind of jumping down to the last one, freezer food. So freezer safe grocery bags or freezer bags can be helpful. And then when we cook, another overarching emphasis is meal prep is, you can do it for just 1 day or 2 days, even though you might think that's more just, oh, I'm just making a meal. But, the mindset of it matters a little bit. But cooking double batches, so trying to spread things a little bit farther. Sheet pan meals, that also kind of goes into crock pot meals are a big one, or air fryer meals. A lot of people have those. I just might not use them a lot. They're very helpful. Crock pot, that's my go-to lunch prep, because I say I am my weekend's a weekend and I don't get around to meal prepping. Well, it might be Monday morning. I can put something in the crock pot on slow cook, and then by the time I get home, great, my meal prep is done for the rest of the week. Though that really doesn't help for Monday, but we'll talk on that. With sheet pan meals, some of those are some of my favorites when it comes to kind of oven sheet pans for like dump and bake meals, chicken, veggies, seasoning. They turn out excellent, and it is ultimately really simple, something you can just kind of throw in. Okay, now diving into more tips. And this is where I prefer to be a little more interactive. So if you do have any other questions that kind of pop up, feel free to raise your hand, put something in the chat. I'm just going to kind of have some open dialogue talking about meal prep options and tips. So ultimately, starting off, plan first, shop second. This is very, very important. At one point, you can work your way up to planning to around for 3 to 5 days, working before hitting the store. Now, at starting out, it might be more, 10 minutes before we go to the store, or the Friday before, whenever we grocery shop. But try to get things into a consistent routine. Especially as kids' sports come up, or your own personal hobbies. Find your shopping time, and then with that, make time to plan and prep, whether this is sitting down with your family or your spouse, partner, housemate, where you're able to talk about kind of what food options you want to have during the week. But having that conversation 3 to 5 days ahead of time is really going to be important for kind of laying that foundation for avoiding some of that decision fatigue. Of course, in the moment, you might feel like, okay, well, I'm having decision fatigue now, but at least it's 3 to 5 days before we actually need to be having those items. So planning first. Now, when it comes to recipe options, now I will kind of specifically give my personal favorites or recommendations, but there is a lot of resources and guides available to you to use that to help with some of the decision fatigue. So whether it is a cookbook and you end up, rolling a dice for a certain section, or it might be as simple as Googling crockpot recipes. What I personally like to do is base that around, which kind of leads to my next one, is batch cook your protein. So think about kind of break down your meal ahead of time. So I kind of have in the next bullet points, bulk cook proteins, prep vegetables, and cook grains in bulk. So when it comes to these, you can think about the components needed for meals instead of the meals combination themselves. Now, of course, ultimately, a recipe will make a meal, but it's still compiled of components. So think about what could those components go into it, and if you have kind of those prepped on hand, or if you're thinking about wanting to increase your knowledge, kind of free cooking versus just recipe cooking. Plan some of those bulk items. What's your main grain, what's your protein, and then vegetable items. Those are kind of the three basic breakdowns of a meal. And then if we think about those, it makes the decision fatigue a little bit less. Like, okay, well, now I have, at least I'm going to do chicken, broccoli, and rice. I know that's kind of a basic one, but and then with that, what can I turn that into? So that's kind of my first approach to getting past that decision fatigue is picking what protein, grain, or vegetable you kind of have a hankering for, or what's in season, because usually that's going to taste a little bit best. Okay, but when it comes to cooking proteins in batch cooking them. So whether it's grill, baking, slow cooking, your chicken, beef, or beans in bulks, kind of your main, protein items. Again, you can cook large amounts of meats or proteins at a time, and then I recommend, seasoning during, but that can be sectioned off into different meals, or you say, maybe I don't season during your cooking, which I recommend, but then I can break that chicken into, I'm going to add seasoning later for fajitas, and then I'm going to take the other piece that I made and just do shredded chicken sandwiches or something like that. So you're able to bulk your proteins. The reason I put protein in there first is for whether we're focusing on gaining weight, maintaining weight, losing weight. Protein is a great place to emphasis because it is a little bit more of a satiating food. Prepping vegetables right away. So a part of that kind of saving time and energy is, again, we're going to have to find time to do the shopping, time for preparation. But instead of letting life kind of naturally get away from us, if we are able to kind of lump our grocery prep into one section, 2-hour bulk or hour and a half bulk. But wash your vegetables, chop them, portion into different containers, whether this is great for snacks and or for meals coming up ahead. Again, the recipes or meals is ultimately just components that are mushed together into a recipe, which makes them taste awesome. So if we do kind of break them down into separate containers, that is great for easy to go snacks, or for being able to then add them to snacks later or to the meals later. Same is going to be for our grains. Rice, quinoa, oats, they keep very well and they're easy to portion out. I know before I mentioned kind of the tool, so having a cup scoop or half cup scoop it will be great for sectioning out. That is kind of one of the tips, jumping ahead to food tracking, is if you do section off foods in different containers, instead of just kind of, there is, we can eyeball, which isn't super accurate, or, I'll explain kind of how you can use your hand for portion sizing. But if we're already separating meals out into different containers, whether it's for snacks or to combine later, section out right then and there instead of just, with a random scoop, or even measure out at one time how much your cooking utensils are. So then you kind of have an idea of the size of each serving that you're giving yourself. All right, then mix and match ingredients. So you can prepare a few base foods, your proteins, grains, and vegetables, and then rotate seasoning sauces to keep your meals fresh. Kind of what I made before. You can prepare multiple recipes out of similar ingredients, just really modifying the spices and maybe, a different sauce or something base that you add on top of it. Investing in those good containers. So clear, airtight containers to keep your food fresh and visible. Visibility is huge. I don't have a tip on here for it, but one thing I should have added is your fridge and pantry awareness. That goes very far. Instead of having an unorganized fridge and pantry, get into a routine with our pantry and fridge preparation, and making sure that we can clearly see everything, because if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. We have a very busy schedule, so you can't expect yourself to remember, what's in the very back of my fridge. I don't know. What's in the bottom of my chest freezer. I don't know. I can't see it. I don't remember. So come up with a system it's going to feel like a lot of work at first, but you kind of, one and done, and then just keep up the routine. Don't put it down, put it away, and make sure when you put it away, it kind of fits within its right spot. Everything has a place. Okay, so yes, invest in those good containers so that you can see your food and that it clearly can either be labeled or you put it in a certain section. And keep things simple. So even just starting with 1 to 2 meals a day can be prepped until it becomes more routine. One of my favorites to then start with is going to be breakfast. I know that was one of the questions. It's kind of, high protein breakfast meals or ideas. Overnight oats or an egg bake are great options, and some of that can be easy to start with, or even kind of a yogurt parfait where you just add, yogurt and granola. I guess I probably wouldn't mix the granola with the yogurt, but overnight oats kind of goes away from that, where it's an excellent thing you can kind of prep, super easy, great fun recipes out there, and that can be something that can help at least get into your routine of meal prepping. And breakfast I find is typically the easiest to do that with. Okay, use freezer-friendly options. So stews, soups, and proteins freeze really well for backup meals. You don't feel afraid to freeze our meals. Those are going to be really helpful for in a pinch, or if life, work, kids' schedules get away from you and you're like, oh, shoot, you have that question, what's for dinner? Well, luckily, we prepared ahead of time for one of those 3 to 5 or a few meals of our week, and we have some freezer options. Or even if you do cook in bulk, then you can freeze half the meal, or, the meal that does not get eaten by your family, or maybe your family's not a big fan of leftovers, but okay, great. That's something I can take for lunch, or I know I'm having a crazy schedule, so I might be doing something different with my family this week. So freezer friendly options. Those are great for our backup meals. And again, don't feel afraid to use freezer, because a lot of people ultimately already do freezer meals. And if we home cook it, we can kind of control what goes in and some of the portion sizing, and try to get more whole options over, typically freezer meals are filled with a little bit more sodium. Not always necessarily a bad thing, but everything's fine within moderation. Portioning out our snacks. Just like how I mentioned, cutting up the vegetables, we can pre-bag. So if we get kind of a bulk bag, Costco, Sam's Club, nuts, fruits, hummus cups, to kind of avoid overeating, whether it is during those snacks, or if we are someone who is kind of a habitual eater, or likes to snack at certain times, that's totally fine, and we can account for that. And I'll talk a little bit about that within tracking. But yeah, keep portion out your snacks ahead of time. So instead of just kind of the mindless fist grabbing, for myself, I love me some popcorn and then a bag of nuts, and I can just kind of, love the motion, just eating things over time. But those add up. So if you are looking into tracking calories, or again, not tracking calories, but awareness of our intake, that could be something. If we preemptively put that in a little snack baggie and prepare, it's great for grab and go, but also for kind of tracking as well. Okay, yeah, and don't over prep. So stick to 3 to 5 days ahead to avoid waste, and keep fresh food. We want to make sure. So instead of prepping for something 2 weeks from now, that food's not going to last long. It's pretty safe that everything can last about 4 days in the fridge, 3 to 5, some foods, but you really don't want to push too far past that, because bacteria can grow, and that's not great for us. And label and date your meal. So this helps keep your freshness and avoids mystery containers, because you have one thing in there like, I don't know, did I prep this week, last week? Did my partner prep it? Instead of that, just, and then you might have to either smell it and you're like, oop, that was a bad idea, or risk eating it, or in order to avoid that, labeling and dating, especially for freezer items. So something's not in there from, oh, this is from, grandma from 3 Christmases ago. Probably, not great anymore, but might still be good. Who knows? Anyway, so either in the fridge, whether you get kind of a little label maker, or they do make some markers that can kind of go on Tupperwares, or even just a little sticky note in a certain section of your fridge to kind of block out what food is what. Or you can have a list on your fridge as well. If you get a little whiteboard magnet, you kind of section out what meal prep you've done, in case the family's looking for what snacks or what has been meal prepped. That's all in 2 good to go areas. Okay. So ultimately, the 3 main levels of meal prep, as then we slowly transition into more food tracking, is going to be wash and chop. Well, I guess the pre-prep is going to be making sure we have that list. So take time to actively make our list. Talk with our family. Think about trying to push through that decision fatigue, finding those recipes, which I'll talk more about that at the end for resources. But once we've kind of made our list, and pick a date for shopping, put stuff on your calendar too. You even can put food decision day. It can be just a take 5-minute action. You put someone on your calendar on a Friday, or a Monday, when your week starts to get a little bit less hectic, we can kind of sit down and kind of think about, okay, what are some recipes that I want to use for this week. And then once we kind of have that, grocery shopping. Now, one quick tip for grocery shopping is, if you're thinking about trying to work in more whole, less processed foods, think exterior of your grocery store. So they're going to keep all of our fresh produce, meats, dairy items kind of in the exterior ring, and then kind of going through the rows will be a little bit more of the processed food items. So once we kind of have stuff, wash, chop the produce, we can batch cook our proteins and grains, and then later we can use that to assemble full meals. Even just kind of chopping the vegetables ahead, that's going to be a huge win. If we do batch cook our protein, it's going to help our weekly meals prep faster. Or things, for salads, I can kind of mix and match stuff right in the morning because it's already been prepped. I don't have to do any of that thought work. And those pre-prepped or assembled meals are great for things that can be grab and go. And try this at a level that feels doable. You really want to find something that's realistic, sustainable. Remember, consistency is better than perfection. So start slow, do a couple meals at a time, pick meals that are going to feel easier, even if you already are in a habit of kind of, very similar breakfast. Even getting into that meal prep thought instead of just the, Monday routine of breakfast, it's the little mindset switches, which will help ultimately in the end. Okay, if there are any other questions on kind of the meal prep, please feel free to let me know. I will be re-answering more questions at the end, and I've saved some time to do so. Working into smart food tracking. So just like consistency was better than perfection, awareness is also better than perfection. You want to think about tracking as not a punishment or strict calorie counting. That's not realistic. That's not sustainable. That's more putting a negative emphasis on food, which is not great for our mental health. And it's hard to be realistic and sustainable with a negative mindset. So awareness is going to be better than perfection. I would prefer someone is more looking into, again, referencing back, of how I eat. Why do I eat? How does it make me feel over, I have to cut this, that, and the other thing out of my diet. Restrictive diets, they're shown to not really be, they may find results, but are they sustainable? Probably not. I would prefer to have my fun, sweet treats now and then, or to, be aware that those are going to be a part of my diet before, instead of, cutting those out in general, because what is life and how is it fun without having our sweet treats? But yeah, so tracking patterns, not calories. Look at the habits. We are very habitual creatures, and try to raise your awareness to, again, how we eat, why do we eat, and how does it make me feel? You want to be flexible, and you want to make sure that you are not obsessive over our food. And a lot of people, for example, kind of the awareness or kind of our habits is a lot of people don't realize that you might skip a protein in breakfast until you track it, or you might, you realize small things, and it's less about trying to, again, we're not trying to make 180-degree switches. It's slowly, it's like a gas meter, slowly trying to work that meter up to a full tank, 1 mile at a time. Okay, similar kind of open dialogue about my most recommended tips when it comes to smart food tracking. One of them is track before we eat. The day can get away with us. We, are very busy, families, lives, work, personal. So either track before or during while we eat to kind of to help log the food and keep mindful about our portions versus kind of racking our brain and be like, okay, what did I eat? I don't remember. Now, I do want to mention before jumping too far into the food tracking. So diet tracking is very helpful. And ultimately, if weight loss is a goal, not saying it needs to be, but if it is, food tracking is going to be the most effective method for weight loss. Now, that being said, that does not have to look like calorie counting or weighing my food. And what I'm going to explain here is there's other options than just that, because that seems very daunting. That seems very scary, and it takes a lot. So you don't have to kind of jump head over heels right into the most challenging method of food tracking. Start with that awareness versus being perfect about everything we eat. Okay, so, and there are other styles of tracking too, which I'll get there for the simple tools. But yeah, track before we eat. Be consistent, not perfect. Just aim to track on most days and don't stress over the small mistakes or misses. You might miss a meal here or a day here or there, or I'm going to be traveling on the road or I'm on vacation and I don't really want to track. That's okay. You don't have to. Now, no. If you get into a routine of not tracking, that would be a kind of a habit that we want to slowly break and bring more awareness back to. But we don't have to be perfect, just consistent in aspects. Or maybe even start by tracking just our protein intake. If you want to focus on one of the 3 macronutrients, protein is going to be my recommendation. A lot of people have more of a negative connotation with carbs and fats. They're going to be important in our diet. They're one of the 3 macronutrients. We need all protein, fats, and carbs. And the reason protein might be a little bit more can be helpful to put an emphasis on is because it's more satiating. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone, or I wouldn't tell you to eat less protein. So sometimes, people get into a habit of, I need to eat less carbs, I need to eat less fats. You're not going to have that issue with protein. So instead of thinking about what do I need to restrict from my diet, what can I add into my diet instead? And tracking protein can be helpful with that. But using simple tools, so apps. they can really make logging food a lot quicker. MyFitnessPal, Lose It, Chronometer, those are my probably top 3 favorite apps. I use a lot of MyFitnessPal and Lose It apps. Now, Lose It is great for maintenance to weight loss. They're really emphasis kind of on caloric deficits versus MyFitnessPal is a very generic, I'd say calorie counting app instead. So if you're looking for more maintenance and or switching to weight gain, depending on your workout routine or what your goals are, Lose It will probably not be the greatest recommendation. If you do want to use MyFitnessPal, know they did paywall their QR code scanner. So what I recommend for you doing that, actually the workaround is you can move your location outside the US, and then you don't have to get charged for that QR code scanner. And you can still use it to then log your meals, which is very, very helpful versus plugging something in. Now, this might be on the next page, but with some of those apps, a lot of times you'll be able to I think it is actually, but you can save your meals. So whether it's your breakfast, your recipes, you use it once. Again, we're typically habitual creatures, so if you eat the same breakfast every day and the same lunch, but dinner is different. You can log those recipes or those meals in there, and just it's press and go, and it works really, really effectively. Yep, MyFitnessPal is great. Okay, when you're looking at tracking, don't forget about your drinks. Don't forget about extras, creamers. Sorry. A little IT pop up for the restart. Yes. Yep. Totally feel free to use that with MyFitnessPal. I learned that a couple of years ago from someone who came in here talking to me because I was like, yeah, it's a bummer it got paywalled, but it is accessible if you. So I think I live in Canada. I have some cousins there, so I'm in Canada now, and that's really, really helpful. Yes, but so creamer, sauces, condiments, they add up fast, and oftentimes. So yes, those add up. So that can be something that we can put awareness to, and then thinking maybe instead of just squirting a big dollop on our salad, maybe that's going into a teaspoon or tablespoon first, and then whacking it out. Now again, I don't want emphasis to turn into an unhealthy observation of our diet. Try to be flexible, be understanding, and don't be super rigorous with our intake, because that could lead to a negative path, which I wouldn't want you to go down. So weighing or measuring food first. So gold standard of diet tracking is going to be weighing and measuring food. It truly comes down to then a gram base of what's going in my body. So if we use a food scale, measuring cups, you're going to get a much better look than if you are just using kind of a hand portion control, or if you're eyeballing it. We are really not good at eyeballing it. So if you're thinking, oh yeah, I track calories, but I eyeball it, realistically, you're probably anywhere between 100 to 600 calories off. And that could be the difference between gaining weight, losing weight, or maintaining weight. Okay, visual hand guide to portion sizes. I do also want to mention I have a lot of, at the end, I'm going to go through, I have a lot of resources I'm going to share with you, and perfect. Yep, Amy and I, we both live in Canada. I hope we are neighbors. It's beautiful up there. So visual guide to hand sizes. So you do not need to weigh your food. You do not need to use those measuring cups, especially if that's something that will kind of lead to a negative mental health emphasis to nutrition. It really should be a positive thing, a happy thing, because we have to do it to live. You should find the pleasure in that, and it shouldn't be super rigorous. Now, that being said, there are I was going to say other journaling styles. I'll get to that in the next page. Jump ahead of myself. I'm getting excited. But hand portion control. So this can be really effective. Now, again, hand sizes are going to vary, but it's good for a consistently inconsistent or a good overview of our nutrition. Again, awareness is better than perfection in terms of tracking. So if you look kind of your closed fist front to hand, that's about half a cup. You look at a whole clenched hand, kind of the inner fist area, that is about a cup. So think about using those for grains. That's usually about a serving size. Your main fingertip of your index, your pointer finger, is going to be about a teaspoon. And then your thumb is going to be about 2 tablespoons. And then we have our palm is going to be around 3 to 4 ounces, which is usually standard serving of meat. So that is a great thing to kind of be aware of. Okay. So saving your go-to meals, MyFitnessPal has a great option for that. Yes. So we want to think about how we can save time for your tomorrow self, save time for your evening self, by doing some things now. So that's, as we are prepping vegetables first, bulk prepping some of our meats. Same's going to go for a meal logging. So say you have 20 meals that you kind of eat in a rotation with you and your family. Take one time to log that, and for the next year or more, it'll forever be there. It will be already logged and you're ready to go. If you switch your recipe, you can modify it in the app. And otherwise, when it comes to actually then the actual tracking of it, it's good to go. And we can track it and log it. Easy peasy. Look out for your patterns, not just numbers. Look at your mood, look at your energy, your sleep, your cravings matter too. Look at all those other aspects over exactly about. So that's in the awareness. I like to call it kind of the data collection phase of nutrition. Just like exercise plans, you're going to start slow, you're going to ramp up. That's going to be the exact same here. We're adding habits, behavioral habits on top of each other. So look for those patterns in your eating. Look for when I'm super stressed, what do I veer towards? When I am super busy or when I have decision fatigue, what do I constantly pick? If we understand our habits, our how our eats, our why our eats, and how do things make us feel, we're going to be one step up in a great direction. Because if I consistently keep eating this very large meal and then at 2 p.m. I'm just fatigued and I'm super tired, maybe great. Let's note that. Note that down, and then we can kind of modify things moving forward because we don't want to feel like that. And we feel super bloated from eating something. Well, maybe let's not eat that and see if we feel better. And that can help with our energy, our mood, our sleep. And then even some of those are going to be the positive benefits that we see from modifying our intake or to more of a whole unprocessed food. Again, we're not going to talk too much about that. But I do have another webinar out there if you do have questions on that. Set reminders. We are in the corporate world. A lot of people are tied to your calendars. So set reminders for your personal health as well as your work health. So a quick phone alert can really help keep you on track to forget to log. A lot of apps like MyFitnessPal, you can set up what time it wants you to ding you for. Did you log your breakfast? Did you log your lunch? Did you log your dinner? And some of those are pretty funny little quips that they'll send over to you, or put it in Outlook if you're really stuck to Outlook, or if you like a personal notebook for a reminder, that works too. So another less consistent but still can be reliable is use your accountability systems, your family, your friends, someone who might be going through something similar with you, whether it's exercise, whether it's nutrition. They can kind of be helpful reminders. If you eat lunch with someone at the same time and they have similar goals, they're also trying to modify the nutrition intake. Try to keep each other accountable, make a community out of it, make a game out of it. Try to make it seem more fun, less scary, and it's got to be flexible. Plan for flexibility. So leave room for treats and so tracking doesn't feel restrictive. Restrictive diets might work for some. They typically, won't work for everybody. I'm more of an advocate of what can I add into my diet? What can I modify? Can I get more protein? Can I get more fruits and vegetables over, well, this isn't quote unquote healthy, so I can't eat it. That's a very subjective term. Food is food. Everything is fine with in moderation. And you really want to make sure that we are, and it's also part of the reason I'm not, I will give some food options of easy meal prep items here at the end to answer some questions that people gave ahead of time. But I won't specifically dive into here's your go-to meals for gaining weight, losing weight, maintaining weight, because everyone eats differently. Everyone has different eating habits. So if I would not, I'd feel bad if I'm like, all right, here, eat this for progress and success. I'm like, oh, but I hate it. Then don't eat it. You really have to find foods that are going to work for you, because what works for you is not going to work for me, and vice versa with another person. So be flexible for yourself. Leave room for your favorite stuff. Now, if that favorite stuff turns into, I have a sweet treat after breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and both my snacking options align more with less whole and more processed foods. Well, that's going to be a habit that we want to ultimately modify a little bit. So but still leave room for treats in your tracking so that doesn't feel restrictive, because that's not fun. And you don't want to live a life that is super restrictive and has a lot of rules. At least I don't. And then have a weekly review. So whether any goal, if you talk to me about coaching, exercise, nutrition, review your goals. See your past logs, spot your trends, where protein areas are, low protein, high sugar, missed vegetables. Those trends are those awareness points, that data collection that's going to be helpful, really helpful long term. Okay, overall, tracking made easy. Use a food journal, use food apps. I don't really talk about a food journal, but I do have a PDF here. I'm going to share my screen in a little bit and show you. So use journal, use apps. A pen and paper work too. You can also use kind of photo or snapshot method, where you're taking pictures of your meals to reflect on later. So if you're like, okay, I don't have time to my busy schedule, or then I got to get home, I got to do stuff around the house, prep for kids, but I have a good 20 to 30 minutes of just kind of me time, and I want to focus on prioritizing my health and wellness. Great. Take pictures of your food, log it later, because our busy brains oftentimes won't put emphasis into, okay, what did I eat again? What snacks did I eat again? And that's okay. You don't have to expect yourself to do that. Tracking does not have to be every single day. Be flexible with your tracking. Track 3 to 4 days a week. That's enough to spot patterns. I personally recommend, if you're doing 3 days a week, especially with a hybrid schedule, 1 day you're in the office, 1 day you're at home, 1 day on the weekend. And that's a great way to look at, because again, we eat pretty much in habits. Usually people are pretty habitual. 1 day in the office, 1 day at home, 1 weekend day. That gives a great trend for how we eat to spot your patterns. Your key mindset needs to be that it's all about progress, not perfection, and that awareness is better than perfection. Okay, putting pretty much everything together, your prep is going to help make logging easier. So prepping equals prepared foods. That's really going to help. They go hand in hand. If we're trying to help ourselves, again, help yourself later. If you know you're going to be tracking something later, well, why not prep it, break it down into containers now, so that later it's a lot easier, or prep that recipe in the app, so it's ready to go. I click a button and it is done. Tracking is excellent for accountability. That's going to show us what's missing in our diet. That is going to be our guide to look at what's going to happen next week. So tracking is that form of accountability, whether, and then lean on your support systems for tracking. Tracking does not have to be super rigorous. It does not have to be super rule-based. It can be as flexible or as strict as you would like. I would emphasize on being a little more flexible, especially as you start out, because it's really hard to modify our habits and hard to do that consistently. And that equals together is consistency. So reinforce the cycle. That's going to help build momentum over time. Don't expect a 180 change overnight. Expect sustainable changes, sustainable progress, modifications to our routine over time. That's where you're really going to see the most benefit to our health, to our wellness, to our mental state, our physical state. And so you don't have to have weight loss be a goal, but I mention this just because it usually is for a lot of people. But you might seek out routine changes in physical activity in your diet for a weight loss goal. And then in reality, we're like, oh yeah, I have so much more energy now that I modified my routine, or my productivity is off the charts, or I'm now, it's a domino effect. I'm now able to, spread myself elsewhere, or, I can pick up more habits, more hobbies. And I'm finding more joy in life from adding things to my routine and trying to just be consistent and build more of a cycle that builds momentum over time. It's a rolling stone. Okay, now thinking about some additional takeaways kind of in a numbered form is you want to start with prep. So always start with the preparation. The preparation happens, what is the meal I'm going to be cooking? So finding that recipe, finding those websites that work. Now, one thing I really want to mention, stress, is AI or ChatGPT has worked its way into every facet of our life. So continue using it in the facet here. Feel free to plug in what foods I have in the pantry, what foods I have in the fridge, or my kid's super picky and only eats this. What can I get away with making recipes on? And or here's my I need to get this much protein in a day or a week. How can I do that? It come up some pretty crazy options and some pretty awesome recipe ideas. And that's something that, again, so the reason I don't specifically label food options is because people can be picky eaters. And, me saying, oh, eat broccoli and tomatoes. I'm like, I hate broccoli and tomatoes. So like, okay, well, you got to eat it. Otherwise, you're going to die. That's not true at all. You can be flexible. What's going to work for me might not work for you. So it has to be, look, it's even out here. Eat how it works for you. I'm jumping ahead. So yes, start small with the meal prep. Track for awareness. Don't track for perfection. Make sure we use tools that fits within your lifestyle. Don't expect yourself to do something completely non-realistic because that's not sustainable. Eat how it works for you. You don't expect yourself to make all these huge changes, and to take that even to, so say right now, you eat out of fast food 3 times a day, 7 days a week. Don't expect yourself to start meal prepping every meal or cooking at home every meal tomorrow. That's not realistic. Instead, how can I modify what I'm currently doing? Baby steps. So instead of, maybe then instead of taking the full, Burger King's double Whopper and fries, I'm now going to modify that to, a single patty. And then that goes into maybe a chicken sandwich, and then or a fried chicken sandwich, and then from chicken sandwich to a grilled chicken sandwich, and then from fries to tots to fruit. And you want to, baby steps, make things slowly work for us in their favor versus having this complete change that's unrealistic. Ultimately, with all 4 of those steps, main theme, practice, practice, practice. That's the only way you're going to get better at food tracking and meal prep is by doing it. Start small and slowly go up from there. Okay. I saved some time at the end to go through our questions. So I'll answer those, but I also want to go through some PDFs that I have for resource guides that I'm going to give out to everybody. So thank you everyone for joining. If you do need to run, feel free to do so. But otherwise, what questions do you have? I did print out, or not print out, but I pulled up. I guess I'll just kind of jump into that. Raise your hand or put something in the chat and I'll kind of read that. Otherwise, I'm just going to right now start going through, for the sake of time, the questions I got beforehand, and then jump over to the guides, which I want to share with you. Actually, I'm going to start with the guides. Okay, I think I can, I don't know. Oh, okay. I think I just can share a window view. Okay, I think this will work. Perfect. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so 3-day diet record. I have about, 8 or so of these PDFs, which I'll send everybody, which are some of my, when I work with someone in health and wellness and nutrition coaching, these are some aspects in which I start first. So a 3-day diet record. You don't have to do a really rigorous tracking of our calories, weighing food to have success. That is the gold standard, but you don't have to do it for success. Here's the 3-day food tracker I was talking about. 1 day you're in the office, 1 day you're at home, 1 day on the weekend. Be flexible with yourself. The notes section is very important. Again, how am I feeling? What caused me to run out the door late? What aspects of meal prep do I need to improve on? The notes are huge because that's what you're going to reflect on. I'll be handing out a food spectrum for proteins, fats, and carbs. Eat more, eat some, eat less. Again, you don't have to be totally restrictive. Just awareness into how can I get more of my intake into the green. One thing I want to point out here, so this is really avoiding processed foods as possible. That's what the sheet's for. You'll see protein bars are on here. Now, supplements are not regulated by the FDA. I'm certified for nutrition coaching, but I'm not a registered dietitian. And sometimes a protein bar, protein powder is going to be helpful to hit our protein needs. It is processed. That's why it kind of puts in the eat less, but that's just kind of something to know. Shopping list. So I mentioned before, use grocery lists, use shopping lists, use templates. Here's one of them for fruits and vegetables. And especially if you are trying to add into our diet, how can I add a couple of these categories every week? Or can I have 2 different vegetables at every meal? Or, how many colors can I incorporate into my intake? So having these, and I'll send them over to everybody, can be helpful. Balancing out my plate. When thinking about dietary intake and looking at the breakdown of how we eat. There are different plates that are here, but this is going to be a main theme. Fruits and vegetables going to be mostly half of our plate. We need to incorporate those in all of our meals. Protein is 1/4, and then we have kind of our starches, our fats. And you'll see grains or the starches are a little bit lower than probably what most people think. And that's because we typically need less of them. We should be striving for more of those vegetables, the fruits, and the protein in kind of this distribution. And it's going to be different. Again, there's different plates because everyone has different needs, and that's okay. I don't know if I can get to this next one because it's behind my sharing button. Oh, here we go. Nope. Okay. Oh, I can move it. Aha. All right, here we go. Daily portion tracking sheet. So another way for journaling is just by the hand sizes. So again, I'll hand this out too. This is great for you to kind of click these boxes or write in here about what portions of certain things did you put in for your meals. Just use it off the hand portion sheet. Here's a shopping list for our proteins, shopping list for our fats, shopping list for our carbs. These are great options. And again, healthy, it's on a spectrum. And food is food. Everything's fine within moderation. Make sure you think about that when you're looking at your dietary intake. Okay. Excellent. That covers those. Now, I did have kind of those questions. So again, feel free to raise your hand, put something in the chat, but I'll start going through some of the pre-logged questions that people got for me. So first one was, how long can vegetables be stored in the fridge? I kind of covered this at the beginning. 3 to 5-ish days. 4 days is kind of a good, safe number for food. And the vegetables is going to be different. If you have hardier vegetables, carrots, celery, bell peppers, those can last up to a week or a little bit longer if they're dry. Leafy greens or cucumbers should be eaten maybe between 2 to 3 days for best texture. Now they can be pushed a little bit farther. For something like spinach or lettuce, put a paper towel in their bag, which can help absorb moisture and get more time out of those. All right, another one was working on modifying refined sugars and processed foods. That all depends kind of on your eating habits, but that's that awareness. How can I slowly modify one thing over another? Can I swap soda for juice to then sparkling water or water with fruit? Can I choose whole fruits over fruits or juices? Can I replace regular sugar granola bars with nuts, with trail mix, with a protein bar that's under 10 grams of sugar? Can I shop primarily in grocery stores in kind of the produce, again, that exterior, the produce, the proteins, the dairy section? Avoid the processed aisles. So if you avoid the aisles, that's a great way to avoid processed. A good question was asked for breakfast options. So some of my favorites for higher breakfast options is overnight oats with, and then you can add in Greek yogurt or protein powder, egg muffins with veggie and cheese, cottage cheese with fruit, seeds or nuts. Protein smoothies are great. Protein powder, spinach, vegetables, nut butter, and those are great for also getting in our fruits and vegetables early in the day, especially if we're like, I really struggle with that. Excellent. How can we make that into a chocolate smoothie or something that is like, oh, it's a little bit of a sweet treat now, but I'm also hitting my micronutrients? Awesome. Other great snacks are going to be kind of, Greek yogurt, jerky, thinking on more of the low sodium side, nuts and seeds, apple slices with peanut butter, roasted chickpeas or edamame. Another good question, how can I satisfy late night sweet tooth cravings? A big part of that can be, whether, we get home, we're kind of just hankering for food or have, cravings. Awareness. Think about awareness. What am I being drawn towards? Look at your entire review my whole weekly tracking or the days on which I really feel those cravings. How do I eat in my normal day? If you do typically have more of a processed sugary diet, we're going to have more cravings towards sugary processed things. That's just how the body breaks them down, how processed it is. So slowly working towards more of a whole unprocessed foods will help with that. But think about eating maybe a little more in the day, a little bit, maybe other 3 bulk meals, or it's okay to graze and snack, and that's okay. Just make sure we are satiated, so by the time we get home, we might be able to kind of curb some of those cravings. But otherwise, we can also replace those with other things that might satisfy our sweet tooth or our savory tooth. So, try fruit drizzled with nut butter or melted dark chocolate. Greek yogurt with a little bit of honey or cinnamon. Herbal tea with vanilla or mint can help curb some cravings. And keep, portion control that treats. So like dark chocolate squares that you can enjoy without doing, and a little Hershey Kisses, the small things that can curb a craving that's portioned out without kind of, going through the whole bag. All right. Another question was how, I guess this is kind of how can I break or make healthier habits? So if you struggle to eat things right when you get home before your workout, Prep. So prep in small, balanced after workout snacks, protein and fiber, or prep things, here's my to-go snack when I get home. Like cheese, hummus, carrots, turkey roll-ups. Sorry, I have just some things written down. That's why I'm going through them. You can drink water before grabbing food. You might be dehydrated. Drink water throughout the day. Don't really talk about that, but that's also a great thing to think about. Stay hydrated. Try to work up to half your body weight in ounces for water. Try to put tempting foods out of sight, out of mind. Try to keep healthier options at eye level. Try to plan your dinners earlier or meal prep so you aren't starving by the time you get home. Or, have a car snack. If you're driving home, prepare for that. That's okay. Awareness. Think about the routine. Think about things I need to build on, modify. Or sparkling drinks like LaCroix is a good substitute for water and or soda. Yes. So ultimately, plain water is still going to be the best, but they will kind of count towards hydration. The decreased calorie, the calorie-free, sugar-free, they are better than soda options. It's still kind of a processed unwater form, but just watch for flavor types with added sweeteners. That's something I would mention for that, and try to choose unsweetened when possible, or kind of look for the additives in there instead. But yep, they won't replace water, but they can help gear you, moving away towards soda or other, pop options. All right. I had another, breakfast question. I think that was kind of all the ones that I had before looking off the list here. Is there any other questions that you kind of remaining in the chat still have that I have not covered, that you would like an answer to or to talk about? I'll give it a minute or so for people to put things in the chat if they wish. If you do need to run, it's getting pretty close to 1 o'clock. So thank you so much for joining. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And if you do have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I guess, one other thing I missed to say was nutrition coaching is available either through Vita, which is a great resource that you all have as Land Lakes employees, or feel free to meet with me one-on-one, and I'd be happy to kind of take you through some nutrition or health and wellness consultations and walk through that.